District Board meeting of May 11th at 1 o'clock. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have the roll call, Rebecca.
Okay, Director Ratterman,
Here.
Director Thomas, Director Davidson,
Here.
President Cicada,
Here.
and Director Underhill is absent today.
Very good. All right, item number 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment today? Mr. Copeland. Hello. Nice to see you.
Afternoon, everyone.
Yep.
I'm Ralph Copeland of Copperopolis and a member of CPC, Child Affairs Planning Coalition. Here to talk a little bit about your April 13th meetings, the infrastructure improvements. I appreciate the work you all have done to locate funding for the infrastructure improvement. Unfortunately, our Congressman McClintock has been a roadblock for CCWD to receive earmarks from our federal tax dollars. So CCWD developed a program at a 2.94 interest rate lock featuring on $17.8 million for system improvements. I commend President Cicada for insisting these loan monies be spent wisely, as all of you have to ultimately answer to us, the ratepayers. In order to spend the money correctly, President Cicada suggested a prioritized list of CIP projects which will be completely funded by this loan. As a representative of Copperopolis, in the agenda, Copper Zone B-C transmission pipeline and pump station is listed as a priority. In a phone call with Michael on December 10th, 2020, it wasn't a priority. During a meeting with CPC on October 15th, 2021, again, Mr. Minkler said it's not a priority. Then on 4/13/22, it did become a priority. This being done without outreach to the community as promised both on 10/12/10/21, 12/10/20 and 10/15/21. I'd also like to remind the board that at least 2 projects for CV development in Town Square, the Reed Turnpike Water Pump Station and a sewer force main, will be paid for by CV developers, hopefully without using CCWD grant nor loan aid. Copperopolis also has a concern about CCWD rates and possible increase. The gentleman Julio with Urban Futures, is it? The firm that you hired, he said that we've done a lot of modeling to make sure that you can currently afford the loan without raising rates or increase any capacity. We will be following this closely. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland, and we'll also be following it. All right, any other public comment? Oh, we have a note. Shall we do, okay. Go ahead, the one online. Let's go for that one. Corey.
Greetings,
Go ahead,
board.
Corey.
Can you guys hear me there?
There you go. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Thanks for having me here this morning. I wanted to contact you guys because my company, North Bay Logistics Group, is very interested in working with Calaveras County to create a biosolids composting facility and an organic waste composting facility for the county and surrounding areas to help deal with biosolids. We've reached out to a gentleman by the name of Michael Minkler about, I think the 28th of April is when I sent out the proposal, and we haven't heard back much. And I wanted to reach out to you guys because we are a disadvantaged business, and I think the program, if we're allowed to partner with you guys, can bring some very important resources in dealing with a very huge problem regarding biosolids, which is an issue that's being addressed in the recent Assembly Bill 1383, mandating rediverting organics and biocomposting from landfills. If allowed to, our program will also help the county deal with issues regarding green waste, any kind of pine needles, leaves, or high pH acidic kind of waste products. And I wanted to, have an opportunity to address you all today to see what would be a path forward with this important work. The facilities that we're looking at constructing will be very high quality facilities with very to little VOC waste and have pretty resolved water balancing systems. And again, as I said, I submitted my proposal over to Mr. Minkler. We haven't heard back, and we have a lot of time-sensitive issues regarding grants and fundings. We're trying to secure some annex land that we're looking to purchase from the county also to do this work. I've also reached out with the Air Resource Board, spoke with Doug Carson over there, of which they have given us a lot of interest and support regarding this composting process, which our process also includes vermicomposting, of which we will be able to really get a high quality end product, which currently a lot of these biosolids are being dumped on farmlands. And a recent EPA study showed that there's about 90,000 chemicals from pharmaceutical industrial waste products that are potentially contaminating these farmlands. And so that process may be something that may come to an end soon. And so wanted to see if we can just mention that and figure out the process for it to get support. Thank you.
Yeah, Corey, thank you for that. Michael, can you?
Just a quick response. So it's not on the agenda for the board today, so we can't get into it. But as we talked about, Corey, staff's reviewing the proposal right now, and we'll be following up with you.
Thank you, Michael. I greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Can we get her last name on Corey?
Corey, what's your last name?
My name is Corey A. Horton Sr.
Thank you. And Michael, you can give us an update after that conversation. Great. Actually, I think we have emails from Corey as well. Okay, thank you, Corey. Public comment. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Amanda Kelly. I'm from Copperopolis as well. I am a property manager of a building over there. I'm actually, I guess you could say part owner too. It's my parents' property. But our concern is we had a meeting 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I don't know how long it was now, but it's a concern of saying that we actually have 4 water lines coming from the road directly to our building.
I hate to cut you off. This is an agendized
I
item.
didn't know if it
You guys
was.
are-
I
Yeah,
couldn't tell
you guys are all going to have an opportunity to speak
What
to
is
this
the-
issue.
on the agenda.
Is that the
Yeah.
commercial? So that
It's
would be
part of
like
the
it
commercial.
would
Okay.
be.
Yeah, it's the very first.
I just
item on
didn't
the
see our
agenda.
name on there, so I wasn't for sure if that was,
Okay, yeah,
could be
yeah.
We'll
considered.
make sure you have
Perfect.
your opportunity.
Thank you very much.
I hate to interrupt. I just
Okay.
want to make sure this is just for non-agendized items here.
Great. We'll make sure we give you an opportunity. So is there any other public comment that is not on the agenda? Anything? All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Let's move on to item 3, the consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. So we have approval of the minutes for the board meeting of April 13th. Review the board of directors monthly timesheets for April. Ratify claim summary 602 from April, and reauthorizing the remote teleconference meetings. Do we have any?
Move for acceptance. Second.
All right. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh.
Aye.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Scott. We have to do a roll call. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes. Give me that one here. All right, moving on to new business. Here we go. Item 4A, discussion direction regarding commercial water and sewer policies. So Damon, you're going to go first on this.
Yeah.
We'll go through some discussion, then we'll make sure we ask for public comment.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we do have a PowerPoint.
And that's this here too, Damon.
Yeah, yeah.
There's yours. Last time, everybody's papers all over.
Did you just get that today?
Awesome. Thank you. So I would say within the past 6 months, there have been quite a few requests for changes or variances to commercial accounts and how the district addresses certain aspects of commercial account billing, metering, and wastewater accounts. And they can all kind of be boiled down into 4 basic questions. If you could advance the slide, please. And those questions are, number 1, are capacity fees assessed incrementally for new construction or new accounts? So how do you assess those capacity fees? And the second question is, are incremental payments for monthly service charges allowed? Meaning, if you have an increment of capacity, can you make an incremental corresponding monthly payment? And I apologize in advance. We're just going to dive deep really
Deep.
quick. Yes.
Go to-
Number 3, is there a policy that allows accounts to pause monthly service charges? And finally, the 4th question, is there an ability to consolidate, in this case, wastewater accounts or water meters or water accounts? And so CCWD took a look at our neighbors, and we also took a look at a few urban water and wastewater purveyors. San Andreas Sanitary District was one of the agencies we looked at, Amador Water Agency, Tuolumne Utilities District, EID, City of Vallejo Storm and Wastewater District, and East Bay Mud. So a couple of those, San Andreas Sanitary and Vallejo, are wastewater only. And so before we dive into kind of the details with each of those questions, it's important to highlight the fact that with water and with wastewater, there are differences generally in how most water and wastewater purveyors bill the two. So with water, you generally have a fixed portion of the bill, and then you have a consumptive portion of the bill. More often than not, actually, we're seeing a changing trend here. More often than not, that fixed portion of the bill is either going to be billed monthly or bi-monthly.
Can I have you go a little bit deeper?
Sure.
So what is the fixed portion supposed to go to? Some kind of infrastructure, or what is that?
Well, so
Versus
that's
a consumption.
So that's a great question. So essentially, it would be the base cost for the utility to convey the water to the residents, the business, the home.
Cost of con-
Exactly. And that can, cost of conveyance, and that can have a whole, you've got your administrative costs, you have your operational costs, treatment facility costs, pump stations, power, all of those things are going to, for the most part, be rolled up in that fixed charge. However, as I have learned in working on this presentation, there are a lot of facets to that. Generally, you can find those in a rate study. Bless you. Or a corresponding document from one of the purveyors. And then on the wastewater side, you will have the same. Oftentimes you will have the fixed charge either billed monthly or bi-monthly, but you also may have it put on the tax rolls for the property owner. And so you see that more often in wastewater, so that when a customer receives that monthly or bi-monthly wastewater bill, they're actually paying for an assessment of, and here's where we start to kind of get nuanced, an assessment of the cost per gallon of wastewater pushed up against either the winter water use, the monthly water use, or evaluation of water use based on the business type. And so moving on to the next page, or the next slide, if you will. We looked at those 4 questions in detail. So the first question, capacity fees. If you recall, and I'm going to jump around here really quick. The first question, are capacity fees assessed incrementally for new construction and or new commercial counts? And so for San Andreas Sanitary, they do exactly what I just described. They have a valuation of a dollar amount per gallon of sewage. So they've completed that estimate, Director Cicada, of it's $68.28 to treat a gallon of wastewater. So we're going to push that up against the estimated gallons of wastewater you're going to generate on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis. And we're going to bill you correspondingly.
Where do you get that estimated gallons of waste generated? Is that like overall the general household uses X amount of gallons?
So we're speaking commercially, yes, but for a general household, it's 70 gallons per bedroom a day. And so this would be, yeah, so this would, and everybody is different. What you'll find are there nuances and variations to everybody. But for San Andreas Sanitary, for a commercial account, they're going to give you a valuation based on your business type. So for instance, a restaurant would be 10 gallons per seat at a table, or a retail space would be 5 gallons per parking space. And so they have this, it's a menu, if you will, or a list of all the different business types and where those gallons, where they would fall.
Who prepared that form, the plumbing code or?
So this was all an ordinance by the sanitary district.
Okay, sanitary.
Yeah, and so just kind of falling down the line, the same is true for AWA. The AWA, they also have a kind of jumping around, but kind of not, because they all have some similarity to this. All of the purveyors are going to have a strength charge, and they're going to put retail or commercial customers into a category based on their sewer strength. Low, medium, high. Some have low, medium, high. It runs the gamut. So they're going to have a cost per gallon. They're going to have a strength charge, and they're going to have an industrial charge. And there's a whole host of additional charges associated with industrial. A few of the water and wastewater purveyors listed here do what CCWD does, which is has a monthly base rate based upon what we would call a demand factor charge or an ESFU charge. So there's a demand factor table that CCWD has, and all of the other folks listed here have also, or the water and wastewater purveyors. You know, it might be a tenth of a gallon per seat in a hair salon or something to that effect, that the utility then will calculate at the time the request for service occurs. So they pay a deposit to the engineering department. The engineering team would say, okay, you're going to have X business. We're going to, you know, your initial charge, your capacity charges are going to be X number of equivalent dwelling units. And all of these, CCWD included, have an ability to review that usage over time.
How often does that occur?
So it depends. It varies. For some of these, Vallejo and East Bay Mud, it can be annually. So they can review your winter water use annually, and then they will adjust that rate based on that water use.
Does anybody make adjustments, for instance, when we had COVID and hair salons can't be open? I mean, I could still see a base rate, but there should be no other charges, I would imagine. You have COVID coming in.
Right. So in terms of, I'm sure there's special circumstances for all water and wastewater purveyors, but in terms of the entities that bill based on a flat rate, you're going to be billed a flat rate. If there was no, during the time of winter water use, one would presume if there was no consumption that you would just only be billed a flat rate. I didn't see anything explicit in any of the policies or the documents that I looked at that said by the way, and it doesn't ring to me that it would make sense, but by the way, you're going to be charged the flat rate, but if your winter water use is 0, we're going to charge you something. I didn't see that.
The reason you do the winter, you're assuming that these people have outdoor landscaping.
Right, and you want to capture what's inside the business or the residence, right?
Okay, getting back to this calculation, you started off with San Andreas and they had the
Yeah,
68.28 per gallon. And then it sort of jumped into a 50-seat restaurant. And it came up with a $34,000, $34,140 capacity fee charge. And there's nowhere in that explanation that clarifies that this capacity fee is charged one time at the onset. I mean, it's not a capacity fee per month. You're saying that it costs $68.28 per gallon to treat water. That would almost seem like that you're going to be charging that each and every month.
Yeah, I'm talking about the capacity charge. That's
The
correct.
initial,
Yeah, that's correct.
somebody wants to open a restaurant or want to open a hair salon or something, that the calculation would be that first time, only time.
That's right.
And then the ongoing capacity charge, or not the capacity charge, but the delivery, what?
Delivery.
Yeah.
It would be the cost per gallon saved, the monthly charge or the bi-monthly charge, the routine cost, right?
Yeah, but that's their fair share of the ongoing cost of the piping, the pumping, the administration.
Right. And so then, so this is an additional questioning here, but just to riff off of what you're saying, Director Thomas. So for instance, for San Andreas Sanitary, on a monthly rate, you would be charged your fixed monthly charge. There are 7 groups for commercial accounts in San Andreas. Group number 1 has a base rate of $76 a month. And then they're charged a $4.73 charge per every 1,000 gallons of winter water use, or per EDU. So that's the variable charge there. And so then it changes, it ratchets up based on the sewer strength or the class. And that's similar amongst all of these different utilities. So, and some of them, obviously in the city, are going to have lower monthly base rates. So if we kind of move, if we could move to the next question, Rebecca, just for the. So this is to that question, Director Thomas. Incremental payment of monthly service charges, is this allowed? And so really, when we talk about how San Andreas Sanitary does it, unless you had a leak during the period of winter water use, which there may be a provision that accommodates for that when you say, hey, man, I had, 30 gallon a minute leak coming through my 1-inch water line. When you guys assessed my wastewater account, can you please reassess? You're going to pay the actual usage of your winter water use. You're going to have a fixed rate on a monthly basis, which is the cost of doing business for the utility, but then you're going to pay for that actual winter water use. Some of these San Andreas Sanitary, AWA, TUD, EID, CCWD have a floor to that. So you won't, well, I take that back. San Andreas Sanitary does not have this, but Amador Water, Tuolumne, EID, and CCWD have a floor of 1 EDU or ESFU, some call it. So CCWD, for example, has a base rate, and then we have the fixed rate of what you were assessed on a monthly basis, and we won't go below a 1 equivalent dwelling unit. And some of the other entities do the same. And then
That's not true of a apartment complex.
Well, so it's in our policy, we have a base rate of 1. We
I
won't
thought we
go,
had 0.67.
For each unit.
Right.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any connections there.
No, I'm saying if there were 10, it would be 6.7.
that's right.
Yeah.
Right. But so for example, if there may be folks out there that have less than what would be considered an equivalent dwelling unit, a toilet, a sink, a bedroom, or what have you, or a bathroom and a sink in a business, they would be charged 1.
What about I don't want to get too far off track, but how do accessory dwellings fit into that?
They're too far off track now.
Well, so I can tell you that we're working on an assessment similar to this just for accessory dwelling units, but I'm starting to see that it's most common to assess their use basically on a water use based on a fixture count and then bill additional charges regardless of square footage is what I'm starting to see.
We currently do not do a fixture count on commercial projects.
We do.
For commercial,
Yes.
we do.
Really?
Yes.
ADUs are residential, but we're
drains.
gonna have
Right.
to take that
Yeah.
policy too.
Yeah. So just,
If it's more than one, basically.
right.
If the fixture count would result in something less than one EDU, then it doesn't come into play.
So moving on to the next question. Is there a mechanism to pause commercial service? And the short answer is no. On all the policies that I reviewed, everyone has a termination policy that is similar or it has similarities and differences to CCWDs, but for the most part, it's a termination policy. And then all of the utilities have a discontinuance of service policy, which is a little bit different. And some of them couch them differently as how they describe them, but they're going to fall into a couple categories. One is you want to terminate the service. You no longer want the service. Some will either physically remove it or some will simply administratively call it terminated. And then the discontinuance can mean I want to close my account, or I want you to stop service while I fix a leak or make improvements or remodel. It varies. It's subtly different, but for the most part, they mean the same thing.
Does CCWD have that policy?
Yes. Well,
What's the time frame on that? Like they're remodeling, or what do you get them?
help me with the details, but we have a termination policy.
The
and we have-
termination of service policy we have only applies to vacant properties with no water use. Excuse me. And then the suspension of service
That-
policy that we have would only apply, I think, to buildings that are essentially not useful or uninhabitable.
Like
And
a
there's
fire.
period of time to rebuild,
But
right?
if somebody was like, it sounded like you said, some companies, some districts have, a policy where they can pause service for a certain time while they're repairing something or remodeling. Do we have that option? I thought we did it once.
So that's the suspension of service,
Yeah.
and I think it's 6 months, I want to say, for if you had an
I
issue.
don't think it would apply in that circumstance. I'd have to get confirmation from them, Charles, but I don't think it applies unless there's been like some destruction of the property, it's red tagged, and there's some remodeling going on to address some uninhabitable
Right.
circumstance. There's no possible occupancy. We have a window of time that we would allow for that.
I believe that years ago, the way we calculated capacity fees was an estimation. It was just a wild ass guess, for the lack of a better term, but they tried to get water usage from similar businesses. And then if they wanted to upsize their water meter, we did a multiple of that. Like if, for instance, if they had an 1.5 inch water meter, then we would multiply that sewer capacity by the potential of water that would come out of a 5/8 meter. So it could be a multiple of 10 with a 1.5 inch. I don't know if that's not the right math, but
Right.
That's how we do it, or we did it. And I don't know that we've ever, when we talk about, these reviews, I never heard one happening.
They happen periodically, the
Yeah.
commercial reviews.
It's something that.
For
we-
wastewater only, though.
Right.
Well, but is it something that we initiate, or is it something that the property owners like? A lot of times these, and particularly over the last 20 years, many of these people paid, $100,000 sewer connection.
Mhm.
And they may have a completely different use inside that building now. I mean, that sort of thing does happen.
Yeah.
So I
And
just
for the
want-
most part, that is driven by the customer. So the customer would make the request and then the district would say, yeah, we can do a 2-year commercial review for wastewater and go about that exercise.
So Damon, and I'm sorry, I'm not grasping some of it, but the capacity fee is the fee that we're charging, what we talked about earlier. You know, if the fixed cost,
Capacity
admin.
is for what the treatment facility costs to create.
Okay.
So that's your
All
buy-in.
that
You
is.
want to join the team? Yeah, you want to join the club, you have to pay X.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
New
Okay.
connection fee. or
Yes,
something
that's
like
right.
that.
New connection fee, yeah.
All right, well, I was listening as closely as I could here. The sewer fees have some relationship, some very closely related to the amount of water that's going in through the meter. Is that-
Right.
Okay, now, you'll hear testimony here later about an instance where there's the Day-O coffee shop, you know, where I'm talking about, has no toilet.
Right.
Right.
And I'm confident that the person who requested service for that facility paid full bore for
Yeah,
water and
yeah.
sewer. Now, we don't have a mechanism currently for giving relief for that or a refund for that, but I think that we should definitely consider it. How much did it cost for this strategic plan? But $25,000-$30,000 or something for the consultants? But we're supposed to be, our highest value that we're trying to communicate to the community is we seek to create a positive customer experience. You know, the fact that other folks don't have the ability to take these facts, the legitimate consumption of water and its impact on the sewer, the fact that we will not or cannot doesn't, to me, create a positive customer experience. So I'm not wanting to preach here, but just keep an open mind. Right?
Well, let's just, I mean, the Dale is a bad example. I own a Dale. And I mean, yes, they have a toilet, but they also, you know, it's a food business. They're cleaning and there's definitely drains. I mean, they wash and they clean and they prep and they do all that stuff. So they are creating just the same sort of sewage as any restaurant would, excluding the toilet, but.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that I've started to see in relation to the differences
Jason.
with how CCWD bills on a monthly basis and how others might is there is a distinction within that fixed charge that is somewhat separate of the actual, what you would call the commodity or the water charge or the sewer charge in this case, for example. So it's different because in those cases, and it's been called out through the rate study, it's highlighted what you're going to pay for that fixed charge, and it's explicit. And so for some of these folks that say we don't go below 1, it's because their rates aren't developed to accommodate for that. Doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't an acknowledgement or a discussion of that way of billing. Just those folks at the time the rate study was implemented didn't go that way.
So the capacity fee is a one-time charge, or is there some places where they have?
It's a one-time charge, but the corollary is if I'm gonna have a business that has one equivalent dwelling unit, it has a corresponding capacity charge, but it's also gonna have a corresponding use charge, for example. And so that's why we talk back and forth. Some of these utilities have a corresponding use charge, while others will say, we're going to go purely by the gallon.
So my question, was a capacity one time?
Yeah.
Okay, and the use charge is the monthly.
Yeah, that's right. And so what often happens is the number of units, if you will, that were calculated in the initial capacity charge will inform, for commercial, the bucket you get put into and determines your cost per gallon of sewage from then on out. And so somewhat significantly different CCWD's methodology. However, one of the similarities is we will assess that in this case for us every 2 years. And if we see that there's been a change in that use, we will reduce the number of what we call units, right? Correspondingly, or potentially increase.
And to determine the number of units, you use number of fixtures or drains.
That's right.
And just to clarify a couple of points here, and I have to say Damon and his team have just, to take a phrase we've been using a lot lately, a deep dive on this and put together a ton of information. But there's a couple of really important points that he's touched on that I want to make sure we're not glossing over, and that is just the EDU calculation that we use for the capacity fee is the same number of EDUs that commercial account would get billed for based on, because we have a per EDU rate, right? So the calculation, so the capacity fee is a one-time only connection fee, but the calculation is the same, at least initially, for the monthly rate that the customer is billed. And then as far as just the rate structure in general, I think that's also a really key point that, you know, this was contemplated. These discussions happened during the rate study process, and the outcome was that, you know, there's a 1 EDU minimum cost for each connection that's connected to the system, both as far as the capacity fee goes and the minimum monthly rate that we charge on the sewer side. That was determined and set and baked into the rate structure that we have right now, that minimum cost per customer per sewer connection. It's not directly tied to water consumption. It's the minimum cost of, you know, that each customer pays to maintain the system. It can be tied to water consumption once you get above the 1 EDU based on the demand factor, and the demand factors are then they're derived from the typical water usage that you would see for those fixtures. So there is a relationship to water consumption, but it's not a one-to-one.
Right.
And the underlying kind of the foundation of the structure is a minimum 1 EDU.
You know, I wasn't here for the rate study when you guys did the rates. And I'm wondering, can you give me some examples of when they're determining what that minimum use is, that, you know, $60 or $65 per EDU? What type of expenses do they use to develop that cost to that EDU? I mean, I imagine anything to do with, let's say if it's a old dock sewer, you know, so maintain the
Lift
collection
station,
system.
yeah.
Okay, so what about, I'm going to look at my check
Are you
register here
talking
for a
about, are
second.
you talking about the monthly charge?
The monthly, well,
Well, that's basically it's our budget for sewer.
Right.
Well,
Divided
that's what
by
I
that.
wanted
It's our
to-
operational
Okay.
cost, and, you know, so it's O&M,
So
and
when
then
we're
there's the
buying-
R&R portion of the rate, but all of the things that go into operating and maintaining the system, and then repair and replacement of the system, that is all bundled together into that cost to serve.
where I'm going with this is, you all know I don't like the rate increases and stuff like that. And I understand that we have to bill to be able to provide service, right? We have to make, you know, just enough to provide service. But I'm wondering if sometimes when we spend what I see as extra expenses, and some of you know what they are, if we do a better job at spending less overall, whether it's credit card charge fees, or we need extra computers around, or whatever, all those costs that we spend are focused into that rate, correct?
Mhm.
So here's how we can help our customers. This is the message I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
Is we spend less and we don't have all the bells and whistles, so we can still provide good service and not raise rates.
Yeah, point well taken.
Okay.
The one thing about the structure though is it's somewhat independent of that. How CCWD is currently structured is in some regards, in terms of the 1 EDU component, different than some of these others that we're actually frankly learning from. And I think will help to inform a future rate study independent of rate increases, in order to perhaps change how the district.
You know, what would be a different
right.
kind of a take on this, and again, I'm a part of it, so I might be wrong, but when we do this rate study, it's like, okay, here's our current operational costs, and it'll be this much money. What if we stop taking credit cards? How much could we save and lower that rate down? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
be both ways. I see we do the rate study to help the district to make sure we get money, right, to cover everything. Well, let's take a step further to satisfy our goals of making a happy customer experience by, okay, here it is right now, but if we stop doing this, Could we not have an increase?
I mean, I think that's what we do in our annual budget process. We're going through it right now. I don't think we have extra costs or unnecessary bells and whistles. We trim that every year on an ongoing basis to make sure that we're, as efficient as possible.
Well, we can agree to disagree.
Well,
Fair enough.
Damon, going back to a comment that Director Davidson brought up about how an apartment building or apartment complex, they don't get one EDU per apartment. It's, what did you say, 7.67?
Yeah, I think it's 0.7.
And there's a few of them that are
Mine's-
master meters that,
Yeah.
Right.
you know.
Well, that's the next question, the answer to the next question.
Well,
It's not Jeopardy.
let me ask the question.
Yes.
So how is it that we can justify that when it's an apartment building?
Single family.
But then all of a sudden, when we come up, considering the same set of circumstances, but, oh, by the way, it's a commercial building, so no, we can't consider that. It's one EDU regardless.
Right.
What's up with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great point you make. More often than not, if you're going to have an apartment, you're going to have multiple apartments. So generally, if you're in an apartment complex, you're not going to be below one EDU anyway. You might be 1.7 or 2.4 or 6 point whatever, but you're not going to be 0.7, right? And so this goes to the accessory dwelling unit conversation because that brings up a whole host of other, so kind of what you're touching upon, if we were going to have basically an apartment or a tiny home that's going to be assessed 0.7 of an equivalent dwelling unit, and it's going to exist on its own parcel, what is that? It's not an apartment. Isn't it accessory dwelling unit? And so
Take into consideration, for single family homes, if it's a single family home, shouldn't there be one minimum regardless if it's, one bathroom or two
Yeah.
bathrooms? And what Russ is saying with the commercial,
Right.
if we make adjustments for the smaller homes, how come we're not doing it for commercial?
Well, so that's a great question. Some on the domestic side, on the private side, non-commercial side, yeah, do. So AWA, for example, delineates what is one EDU versus what is 0.9 of an EDU versus what's 0.7 of an EDU. If you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, it's a 0.9 of an EDU just for the capacity charge. On the monthly rate, you're charged 1 EDU. So basically, if the capacity charge was $10,000 and I had a 2-bedroom house in their service area, I would pay $9,000. However, if the equivalent to that $10,000 was $5 an EDU for my usage per gallon, I'd pay $5 rather than $4 and whatever, 90 cents. You know what I mean?
That's the minimum.
So that's what there's subtle differences here across the gamut, but ultimately there's similarities within one aspect, say the minimum EDU, right? We don't go below 1 EDU every month, but we'll allow you an incremental capacity charge at buy-in.
The guys that are really getting, the short end of the stick and, is an accountant's office that, uses the bathroom down the hall and there's no washer or dryer, there's nothing, there's nothing in there. We're overcharging those guys.
And so, for
How do we
example,
fix it?
Vallejo Storm and Wastewater, they acknowledge that. They actually call that out in policy and they say, if you own a business that's connected to other businesses and you share and you have no sewers, you have no toilet, you have no sink, but you're collecting documents because you're running a tax processing business or whatever, you're going to be charged the flat base rate for sewer because you're contiguously connected to businesses that have sewer accounts. So there's all manner of these differences and with each of these entities on and how they go about monthly and capacity fee payments. And so this next question, is there a mechanism to consolidate accounts, in this case, wastewater accounts? Or
Real quick, sorry, Damon, to cut you off there. I think it's important though to note that I don't think we could say that we're overcharging those customers necessarily. Because like Damon said, there's other factors that get taken into consideration. The cost to serve study looks at that and establishes the fair per customer charge. So there's other factors that come into play there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so this is the hot topic. Is there a mechanism to consolidate meter amounts? And so for all of these entities, I would say it's a no, but yeah.
Is it our policy though that each individual business has to have its own meter? As
Yes.
opposed to the master meter, which is, a lot of these facilities, well, people may want to, hey, I want to pay my own water bill, or, if a property owner was able just to have one master meter, he would most likely be saving his customers money. And he'd have to go and pay the water bill and stuff. But most likely that consolidation would help those tenants.
Right. So yes, and some entities acknowledge that. They say,
And certainly on that's obviously a big infrastructure change that they would have to make, but.
right.
But for new developments, I think we should try to encourage that.
Well,
It's easier for us to have one account than it is for us to have, 6 accounts.
So when you talk about consolidation of water, that's the method. The method is you provide a master meter, and different entities have different ways of acknowledging what we call the sub meters. Some charge you an upfit charge to have sub meters installed. Some don't. There's a whole manner of.
It would seem like, for instance, if you have a restaurant, or say there's a pizza parlor in that takes up 5,000 square feet of a 10,000 square foot building, I see where we would maybe want to have that pizza parlor on its own meter.
Right.
And then, but the others, and maybe there's a use mechanism. That
Yeah.
If the use is, managerial or clerical, they could be on a master meter. But if there's a high water user, then they need to be independent. But maybe we can do both.
Well, so you touch upon another aspect of this, of trying to answer this question through reviewing the policies of these other entities, is some say exactly that. It's staff decides where the master meter goes and who gets the master meter. Others are unequivocal, and they say, if you want to have a master meter installed, here are the costs. We're going to charge you X dollar amount for each sub meter, the installation, the box, what have you. And then your responsibility is to collect. We're going to bill you based on that master meter, and everything else is on you, including the O&M related to any of the service lines that come out of those sub meters. And oftentimes that's what the turnoff might be for folks.
and we do allow that. We do.
Right. We do allow
I
that.
think the policy changed early 2000s where the district would allow master meters.
In commercial.
Yes.
Right.
You want to continue on with your, and then we'll ask.
And so this also when it comes to wastewater, the commercial review component ties into this, answering this question also.
Hey, Damon, there
Yeah.
was something that I highlighted here on the first question on the city of Vallejo. The last sentence in their description of how they handle this. There's also a sanitary sewer, upper service lateral charge. All of these fees go to the tax rolls. We don't charge anything to tax rolls on this.
Correct. But some entities do, so they'll put,
We
basic
will
charge.
send delinquencies to the tax roll.
Right.
So we do use the teeter program for delinquency, but we don't put regular billing on the tax roll. It's, yeah, as Damon said, some entities do. It's something we can look at. I think there's pros and cons to doing it that way.
right.
We may not even have the authority to do that via the special district.
We'd have to work with the county on it. The county does participate in the teeter program. Not all counties do. Calaveras County does, and it is very effective for us when it comes to delinquencies, because there's no collection charge for us, and we get reimbursed for those costs as soon as we send that to the tax roll. But we don't use it for regular charges, only delinquencies.
And so then this next slide is just,
Michael, can I throw something in here? That is something that the OC is looking at right now in the local government, the local government committee is actually looking into putting, or how all water districts, special districts included, can put their water, not only wastewater, but yeah, there is current law, and it's governed by the Health and Safety Code, Section 5470. I'm working on that committee with Aqua onto how the actual water bills, monthly water bills, can also be placed on the property tax bill. But there are several entities, cities, counties, as well as special districts in the state that do and always have put their wastewater charges on the they automatically just go as a part of owning a property. You pay your sewer bill when you pay your property taxes.
Right. And one of the discussed possible benefits on the water side is that when you do receive a monthly bill, you're receiving a bill based on consumption. So it's clear what you're using, and the state's hoping that that can allow folks to better understand their water use.
Isn't that a pretty logical way for us to I don't know, to get rid of the consternation about all this stuff? I mean, if customers understand that a portion of their bill
Right.
is just because the facilities are there.
Right.
And you shut down your water, turn it off, those charges still are going to be assessed or applied.
Right.
But if it went to your tax bill, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind in a way. But,
I mean, I think it could alleviate some consternation. It could create other
Yeah.
consternation because you have other people say, I don't want to get hit with this huge bill once a year in my property taxes. I'd rather have it come incrementally every other month. So there's trade-offs to doing it either way. But yeah, it's.
Well, I mean, generally, people think if they shut the water off, they shouldn't have to pay anything. And common sense will make you realize that the price of water itself is,
Minimal.
barely measurable on our bill. It's the bureaucracy, and it's the maintenance, and it's all the other stuff. That's what people are paying for, whether it's on or off.
The infrastructure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So this slide is just kind of a roll-up of CCWD's answer to all of those questions. Capacity fees are developed based on demand factor tables for water and wastewater. Incremental payments are not allowed below 1 EDU. No policy that allows for pause in service charges. And then for water, CCWD does allow for master metering. And for wastewater, there's a 2-year commercial review allowance. And then the next few slides, if you could, Rebecca, are just to kind of give everybody an understanding of CCWD's place in the world in terms of these other utilities. So what do our capacity fees look like? So
I see where you've got JL under the wastewater. That should be locked.
yeah, my bad. Yep. So you can see, AWA's water is 23,800 and CCWD's water are nothing above 14 currently. And, that's West Point, Copper Cove, Ebbets Pass, Jenny Lynn, and Wallace. And then on the wastewater side for CCWD, Jenny Lynn should be La Contenta. But you can see EID for water, 23,292. East Bay Mud for water, Region 1. So they have different regions and they have different I call them upfit charges based on whether you're in a pressurized water system or in a gravity fed water system. So they have a whole host of additional charges depending on where you're at in their service area.
well, how would we do that here?
Oh, man, that would be tough. Could you advance this slide?
Or you have pressure reducing valves to take it from 200 pounds.
So on Ebbets Pass, we have over 100 pressure reducing valves. And so when I think about, different pressure zones being charged a incrementally higher rate based on the cost for that PRV, wow, 100 plus, that's.
We can hire a consultant.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
What are you doing, Carl?
He's trying to figure out how to.
So this one's interesting, fees for commercial accounts. So AWA, I excluded their debt service because they have a different debt service dollar amount depending on which service area you're in. So if you're in the Amador water system, which is Sutter Creek, Plymouth, It's an additional $25 a month, but if you're in the COP Central Amador Water Project, it's $16. So that all of these have different dollar amounts that they tack on.
It would be nice to have like an average number so we could actually kind of tell where we're at.
Okay, that's a good point. Point well taken. Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You
And
can't do that in your head.
I can't tell you what the commodity charge per
yeah,
HCF.
yeah, no, it's a point well taken. Thank you all.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Let's hear some public comment. We can still discuss some more. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
All right, let's have some public comment. Thank you, Damon.
So I'm Michelle Wilson. I currently own Soho Designs and I rent in the town off of Burns Ferry from Amanda's building. I'm coming from Danville, trying to bring my business, trying to build a house out here. So I signed a lease and then I get a bill for $308 for one toilet. And mind you, I haven't even really been in there because we had to do some renovations. And so I started talking to her, and because our sewers, like one toilet's backed up, the rest of them get backed up. And I'm like, why is this? Now I come from AMI. I used to work for Silver Spring Networks, smart meters, streetlights, all the infrastructure, PG&E. So I'm like, why do we have 4 bills? We should have one bill. There's one pipe in, one pipe out, one roof, one slab, one bill. We are paying $1,200 every other month for toilets in a business environment where we're only there 8 hours a day, if that. I mean, I'm not even there that much.
So you have 3 meters?
Well, we had 4. And so I reached out, instead of using one of my local plumbers, I used a local plumber, Contreras Plumbing, went to the building department, pulled the permit, got rid of them, because the pipe size coming in is you got one size and then the other 3 are smaller. So we took off the 3 smaller ones, and literally, I don't even know how these meters even got installed. Because if you look at the infrastructure piping, it's basically coming in from the road on one pipe, and then it's a tree branch. So basically, in 4 hours, he tore up concrete, took off the branch, and everybody's running through one. And then a couple months later, I get a call saying, hey, we're not allowed to do that. So where I come from, an East Bay mud person, I mean, this is normal. You go get a building permit, you hire a local person, and you make the changes. Because from the meter side to the building is the owners. From the meter to the road is the utility.
Right, so, but we weren't alerted that you took meters out?
Well, so we didn't actually remove them, we just disconnected them. So for
Okay,
2
well, I mean, you
years,
can understand where if
Oh.
our staff doesn't know. we're
you
not-
know, and shame on the building department for not saying
Well,
anything, the local
Believe it or not,
plumber.
it comes up a lot with them. When we really we try hard to coordinate well with them, and that's a situation that we need to talk to them about. But I mean, that kind of thing does occur because the building department doesn't necessarily check with us every time they do something like that.
I agree. And, you know, from my perspective, someone who follows regs, I mean, I've been in Go 95 rules and regulation meetings for years. So I'm really versed in this infrastructure and the environment. So for me, for a local plumber to not say, hey, Shell, by the way, you can't do that. You got to go, you know, get a hold of the water company. I'm just like, what?
What?
But I wish this had been addressed like 2 years ago, because now I'm upset, and I think there's some unethical stuff going on, because for me as a ratepayer, if I'm not connected and I've pulled permits, I did my due diligence from what I knew, but we're still getting billed, which to me, this should have been addressed 2 years ago. We did this 2 years ago and we got nothing. And the bills
So you've
keep,
been getting billed?
we've been paying for 2 years for
Yeah, but
3 meters.
Why didn't you call the water district?
Oh, well,
No,
I
we
started asking around because I don't live here yet. So then I got a hold of Mr. Russ Thomas. And I'm like, hey, what's up with this? And he came to my shop and we're getting miscalculated on the water flow rates. I mean, I've got 2 bills here from 2020 where the church consumption is 123, and yet our building is at 600, but yet the church is paying 387 So their sewer is 286, I don't have my glasses, but it's much higher than ours. So my big thing is the sewer. We got one pipe, one pump grinder, one pipe out. It should be one bill divided amongst 4 units, however the building owner, right?
That's what
So
I'm
that's
basically
what-
trying to advocate for.
That's what blew me up, right? Because to me, I mean, I'm from Texas. Everything is black and white. You do the right thing. I mean, it is what it is. So, I mean, I probably gave Mr. Thomas a heart attack because I'm like, I'm going to take this as far as I need to. If I need to go to Sacramento, I'll go. I'll go to anybody to just get a voice. So
I think
thank
you
you
just
for
need
hitting
to
me.
go over there and make an application to get rid of those meters.
No, so, and I don't, mean-
So wait,
yeah, go
so
ahead.
then
That's
we're
not
like,
allowed.
I have an issue that we've been paying for 4 separate sewer charges when we have one. So in my book and in my mind, one roof, one slab, one pipe, one bill. I mean, it's very simple. And then the meters, we are going through 1 meter, 1 pipe right now, and then it branches to 4 separate runs in the building. But from the roadside, it's 1. So from my perspective, I'm like, why are you paying? If they want to shut the meters off, they're not connected. Who cares?
Well,
Right.
Who's been reading them?
So there's a lot more to it, but I don't want to interrupt. So go.
But anyways, so that I'm the one who kind of blew this all up because, and I'm very passionate about, as a business owner, I told Amanda, I'm like, hey, if this is how it is and it's cowboy country and it is whatever they say it is, and there's no way to change things, then I'm gonna have to close up shop. And I'll pay the care and maintenance in Danville and the Bay Area for the higher rent, because if I shut my water off in East Bay Mud, I don't get a bill because that infrastructure does go to my property tax and it's about $55 a month. But I can shut my house down for a year and I don't get a consumption charge, but my property tax gets hit, which I'm fine with. In fact, I told CCWD when they came out, why don't you guys do it this way? This is how East Bay Mud does it.
We don't have 1 million customers. We've got 5,000 sewer customers countywide.
Well, I understand that. You know, I deployed all the water and electric meters at MID, right? I've done SMUD, I've done PG&E, I've gone all across the US deploying this. So I understand, you know, you got to do those infrastructure bills. But to be honest, like even my flooring rep, he left Saddle Creek because of the utility costs. He says it's nuts. The propane out at the golf course. I mean, it is just nuts. These handshake deals, you know, need to change, and people need to, I'm trying to get people in the community to rally together, because it's if everybody leaves, there won't be a water company, right? But if the community doesn't step up and start saying, hey, let's make some changes, because that's what mandates are for and rules, then I'm trying to help get them so we can all get on the same page and make it fair for everybody.
So in a nutshell, can I just ask what you basically want is to have just a master meter like we were just discussing?
Just one master meter and one sewer bill.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's all I'm asking for. And it needs to be fair for everybody, right? Because when I almost signed a town square lease, but the unit was too small for me and timing, I had a family member pass away, I couldn't. But that's all shared services. IGA is all shared. I mean, so there's not consistency through the counties or the different cities is what I'm finding out too, right? So let's make it fair and equitable for everybody. So then maybe more businesses will come up here, right? And we can get more people from the Bay Area living up here.
Now, did you buy this building? Is that?
No. I actually own a golf course lot, right? But
I'm just curious who developed it and if we mandated that they have independent meters or what happened.
So when it was built, I don't think the district allowed for master meters at that time. So it was built, and there's been some different versions of this, but you know, we understand that when it was built, there were the units have always had 4 individual water meters and 4 sewer connections. So that, yes, that wasn't one of the options, I don't think, at the time it was built.
And just to clarify, when I pulled that permit, I went to the building department. I even went downstairs. I tried to see all historical from the day that building was built. And I saw one document, it was like 78 or something old, that there were only 2 meters. And then changes, but then they had I go, well, where's the infrastructure for the sewer? And and the water from the road, they go, we don't have it. We throw it away after 7 years. So I looked for that, right? Before we proceeded with Contreras Plumbing and disconnecting. We didn't pull the meters out of the ground, but we did disconnect them because it's the right thing to do.
So in a couple of other pieces there. So we did, when we first found out about this, it was after the work was done. And she's absolutely right. They were totally transparent with the county about what the work was. The building permit application says remove CCWD meters, and they didn't contact us. So that was a discussion we had with Doug, who was the new building official at the time, and we've had repeated discussions with the county since then to make sure that never happens again. And even Doug, when he first saw that, was like, how could we not have flagged this? So that shouldn't have happened. That was a miscommunication between the county and CCWD. You're also right. I think, not to point fingers anywhere else, but yeah, that there's multiple points in the process where that should have come up, that CCWD approval would be required for a meter removal. And then what we've, and there's no handshake deals. We're very careful to stick to policy. There's no policy that allows for the removal of a commercial meter in an existing, when the buildings are still there, still consuming water.
Is CCWD still billing her for 4 meters?
Yes, and our response was, when we first found out about this and figured out what was going on, the response was, we don't allow for the removal of commercial meters. All 4 meters should be reconnected. And we have to continue to bill for all 4 meters.
But we don't have a discontinuance of service for this?
We do not.
If not, we need some.
So the implications of that, though, are significant and complicated. So that would ripple throughout the county, and we would have to do that through the cost to serve study, because that would be a fundamental change in how we bill commercial
Well,
customers.
let's finish listening to everybody else, and then we'll see if we can put something together.
I want to make a comment about Ms. Wilson's public comment here. It's true that I got the first call from Michelle Wilson, a pretty upset Michelle Wilson, I might say, 2 years ago. And was a lot of frustration in her voice. And then, I looked into it, and the frustration hasn't gone away, because it's been 24 months since it came up. And we've talked about it here fairly frequently. And that's we just should have had this discussion sooner, so that we could have been on top of this. And I want to apologize for not being more forceful, or whatever I should have done. But I think that I get the sense that we're all on the same page, or similarly inclined, that we want to do a better job toward fulfilling the promises that we made in this document here. And we'll get there. It won't be today, probably, but because it's not agendized to change it today, but we'll work on it. So let's hear some.
Yeah, we'll
some more
put something together so we could at least start the ball rolling, whether it's a policy change, adding a policy, whatever. We'll have to figure out something, doing your cost of study, whatever it is. But let's hear to everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then I
thank you.
think have a
I just want to add a little bit where she can sum it up. So actually the owners got it in 2011, which you guys, and what we signed was actually a sign over of new ownership. It wasn't add 4 meters. Meters were there. Like she said, we did find a thing stating that they actually did add the 4 meters in 1998. So I don't know if there was 1 or 2 or whatever, but they added 4 in 1998. And then on top of it, when that all affected, the county and everything, miscommunication, whatever, I did reach out to, not the board, but the water district, and try to do the right thing, try to get the contract going to switch all this out, submitted that and didn't hear anything back. So, but when the owners did get it in 2011, I actually did reach out to them, because again, I'm the one who does all the paperwork and everything. Asked them about the situation, saying, is there any way we can make it into one? It's one building, all this stuff. Again, that was 11 years ago.
When did you apply for the application to get it changed?
2 years ago. So after
So
we
that's
did it, and then we found,
2020?
and then when someone reached out to us saying, no, you can't do it through the building department, you got to go through us. So it was about probably a month or so after that.
2020 though.
Yeah, exactly. But when I did call the water district to see if I could change all this, again, I don't know the girl's name or anything, but who I talked to pretty much told me, no, there's no way of change, didn't direct me to someone else maybe to help me a little bit better. And then pretty much told me the only way I would ever get change is if the building burnt down. And
Oh
that
my
was it.
goodness.
That was all I was told.
And that's the
So
customer
again, maybe
service
because the
problem.
price, we were kind of like, okay, fine, I guess this is how it is. And it's the first time we've ever had a business in Calaveras County. So we just thought that's how it
Sorry
was.
you went through that.
So it took Michelle to, well, and the prices that went up, and we felt this was just getting ridiculous. And we did lose tenants because of our water bill situation, so. But I would like to see this move forward. We do have proofs too, if I need to send you guys anything, pictures, all that, showing that there is only one water coming from the main road and one sewer line as well.
I'm sure staff knows, but
But yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
We've been there.
thank you, Amanda. Amanda, what's your last name?
I'm sorry, last name, Kelly.
Kelly. All right, anybody else have public comment?
One online.
All right, let's see who's online.
Hello, everybody.
Is that Dean?
My name is, it is, yes. Can you guys hear me?
I'm sorry, who are you?
Hi, my name is Dean Copens. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So my name is Dean Copens. I'm one of the new owners of the Meadowmont Shopping Center, which we acquired in December of last year. I want to start off by just saying I really appreciate you taking the time to review the situation and address this. And I also want to let you know that for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been working closely with Michael, Damon, and Jessica. And I want to thank them. I think they've been really proactive in trying to find a solution to the problem that exists here. It's been refreshing to work with people who have an interest in serving their customers. I think we have a somewhat unique situation with our shopping center where we have 29 meters servicing the property. And as you all know, we've suffered with vacancy. The center has suffered with vacancy historically. And where it gets really interesting is my partner in this management company, they manage over 17 shopping centers in a number of different counties and different states. They have over 1 million square feet of commercial space and more than 200 tenants. And this is the only center that they manage where we are unable to disconnect service for any period of time. And as a result, we are paying, we estimate, this is before the rate increases take effect later this year, but we're estimating that we're gonna pay between $33,000 and $6,000 a year to service meters that are not providing any water. There's zero usage on. And it's problematic for us, but more importantly, it's problematic, I think, as the previous, well, as one of the previous speakers mentioned, I think it's really problematic for our tenants and for our ability to attract tenants to the spaces. We have tenants who are, most of our suites are approximately 900 square feet. And so there's 1 meter servicing each 900 square foot suite. But a number of our existing tenants and a number of interested tenants are interested in occupying multiple suites. And therefore they would be exposed to costs of multiple meters. And we had a tenant earlier who we were negotiating, we had an agreed upon letter of intent with, and they came to the realization that their water costs would be the single highest component of their occupancy in the center, because it would have been 5 meters combined, and there would have been no way, even though they would only be using 1, possibly 2 meters for service, there would have been no way to disconnect it. So I think that this is, this is a situation that is interesting. There's not one simple solution. I hear you speaking about the potential of a master service, and I understand where that comes from. I will say that I don't think that that's an ideal solution for everyone. Industry standard in retail and shopping centers is that tenants tend to prefer to have individual water meters so that we can properly track their usage. Now, there are ways to implement sub meters. But for example, we have some uses at the center that use substantially more water than others. And we've spoken with Michael and Damon about there is one option that is available for residential customers to terminate service, but you're unable. I don't think it applies to commercial, but the biggest barrier for us is even if it did apply to commercial, we'd be barred from reconnecting service for 3 years. And so as we are trying to attract more tenants and reinvigorate the center and be good neighbors here, we're kind of stuck in this gray area where we're unable to deliver reasonable options to prospective existing tenants.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment? I think, go ahead.
I got a couple comments. One, there's no question our sewer rate is high, even for just single family houses. But I want to remind people also that we're getting ready to try to find $14 million to bring this Copperopolis treatment facility up to standard. So there's no free ride. But I mean, I certainly want to look into the master meter policy. I want to talk about even consolidating meters. Like I always thought Meadowmont was on 1 meter. I thought they changed that many, many years ago. But
No, the units are individually metered.
What's that?
Those units are individually metered.
Something came up at one time over there about that a long time ago, but I can't recall. But in an instance like that, where, again, like I said earlier, where we got high capacity, pizza parlor type meters in a center like that, I think most likely they need to have their own meter. But if there's a pizza parlor and 4, clerical locations, I think we should be able to consolidate that somehow. And so I hope we can look at that. And then in regards to the termination of service, I think the big issue is having to pay another capacity fee after you discontinue service. Is that?
No, so
we don't have a policy. You cannot do that now. Is that right?
No. So the existing termination of service policy that we have now, which was just adopted 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, it was for customers or for properties that have no intent or ability even to use water, so that it's vacant land. There's been 0 water consumption on the meter for 2 years, and they're agreeing not to reconnect for 3 years. So it was really geared towards vacant land that isn't intending to use any water.
We can change that.
Right. It could apply to commercial properties. We've done it on a commercial property before, but only if it meets those criteria. They're very specific criteria that it's vacant land with no possible water use, basically.
Okay, well, what I see is I think that we can come up with something where it's not a termination of service, it's a reevaluation of service or something like that. Now, I know it gets tricky because, there's Supreme Court cases, Del Monte versus City of Tracy, I think, where somebody who paid a large capacity fee wanted to move it to another piece of property. And when they abandoned the food processing plant there in Tracy, and they won that case, that was their value. They had paid those capacity fees, and they won that. So they were able to take that with them.
Yeah.
And on the termination of service policy that we have now, even though it doesn't apply to any of these circumstances, we do give credit for capacity. If in the future that the property owner wants to reconnect, we give credit for capacity. They only have to pay the difference. They're not starting over.
Right. Well, we're talking here in 1998, those connections were probably $1,200 a piece. Now they're
No, I think we give capacity for the capacity at the time of the termination, regardless of what the customer actually paid.
Well, what they got was an ESFU no matter what.
Exactly. And so we give the credit for what they had when they terminated, not what they paid. Because you're right, it could have been in the 60s that they connected. And so, the credit we give is because they had capacity, they were entitled to capacity at the time of the termination.
Okay, well, anyway, those are the three things that I think that we can try to accomplish.
I am thinking, and tell me your thoughts, of an ad hoc committee. I'd like to see 2 board members.
We have engineering.
Jesse, I wanted a little different this time, just meaning I want to make sure the public is part of a potential decision-making. I'd like to see 2 members of the board, 2 members of the public, and I'm thinking Damon and Jesse, the 6 of them get together, identify the problems and come up with a solution. And I think 2 of the issues are being able to do what Michelle did, consolidate to 1 meter. There's a solution out there to make everybody happy. And we have to do our best to make sure they're getting what they're paying for and they're happy. And I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen per se. Let's get 2, 2, and 2. You meet together, working with the 2 staff, and not too many people there talking. And then once it gets to a point where you feel like you have a solution that will work, then it comes to the full board. Michael, you would step in at that time to see what it's like, let them come up with it and see how that works. Damon and Jesse would be there. They know what their needs are. They're going to learn, the financial end, but that's how I see it. At least get the ball rolling to listen to what the problems are and find the solution, and the district coming up with it. The 6 of them. How do you guys feel?
The only problem with that is it's far too logical.
Oh, well, anyhow, and so the two people,
It's the exact
so
same
will
thing.
you 2 people be on the committee?
Yeah, we'll call it the engineering.
Okay,
committee.
the 2 people in the public I'm looking at are right here.
Well, so what I would recommend is, I do think this falls within the scope of the engineering committee, and those meetings are absolutely open to the public. And if this, I think because the ball, I think, is already rolling, right? We've already done a deep dive into what some of the options are here. And coincidentally, we happen to be in the final year, going into the final year of the existing rate schedule. So we've already started the process of the next cost to serve analysis, which is what I think several of the things that we're talking about here would have to be addressed in that process.
So I still want an ad hoc committee with the 6 people I've named. And if you guys can meet 2 times, you may not have all the answers to the solution. Let's say the solution is we need some kind of a discontinuance type policy and a master meter policy. When you come up with that, that's when you should work with the engineering committee to determine how it can be done. But I think it's important for these 6 people to get their heads together. The engineering committee is great, which these 2 are part of that.
How about this?
Okay.
You appoint Russ and I to the ad hoc committee, and to save staff time, we will meet right before the engineering committee.
Well, I want 2 members of the public. And Michelle.
Can be more than 2.
Yeah.
But see, the public can be there, right? But I think the people sitting at the table talking is where we don't want a lot of people there. And then when you're sitting there talking, if there's other people there, let them have their comments. But it's like, she's been doing this for 2 years and there's been nothing done.
We can't prohibit people from coming.
I didn't say we would, but the 6 people at the table were to be the ones running the meeting, or you guys will be running the meeting. And then the public is there to say their comments, and they have, we have Dean on there that says everybody's having wonderful comments. But Michael, yes, we're getting close to the cost to serve, but I'm trying to make it a more, let's get a result so we can move forward. And if they're going to come up with, like, let's say there's the 2 things they want to see happen, right? And then it goes to the engineering committee to determine cost to serve. What can we come up with? What will it cost to discontinue? What will it cost to go to a master thing? And have something that is fair, that's a policy that you can apply to everybody. You do it for one, you got to do it for the others, kind of a thing.
So my concern about having it as a separate ad hoc is that that it would be potentially limited to those people that are identified for that meeting, when I think there's others that might want to provide input. And so by using the engineering committee, a mechanism we already have, that opens it up to anybody that wants to provide input. And I think there's potentially a Brown Act concern if we have engineering committee.
Here's my problem with that is the public just gets to say their comments. I want them to be part of a solution. So if there's anybody here at the meeting today in the public that wants to be on the committee, let me know right now. And then you guys have to determine, Dean, do you want to be on this committee?
Yeah, if there's a committee formed, I'd be interested in having.
Okay, and you two want to be on there. I have other people out there.
Well, why not just have an open meeting?
Because I want them to be part of
Have you
the
been to an
decision.
engineering committee meeting? We have free discussion, the public talks.
No, we lock the doors. No.
I want them to sit at the table. I want them to have skin in the game. That's all.
I think we can absolutely
I
facilitate
assure
that.
you
at
we will.
engineering.
Okay, so will you folks go to this? You know what? Am I the president?
You are.
Okay, so I want an ad hoc committee
Until you're
meeting,
replaced
and that'll be at the end of the year, or is it July?
at the end of the year.
Good, no. They made a monster out of me. I didn't want to be president, and here I am, and now I'm doing this. Ad hoc committee, and I'm gonna have Dean and these two, you two, and Jesse and Damon meet one time and then report back what we're gonna do.
Okay.
And then if it goes to the engineering committee, I'm good with that. I want these folks and you folks getting together and coming up with a
You want to run
solution.
this by our legal counsel?
I'll run it by our legal counsel and I'll.
What would be
I'll
so
work
wrong with it?
staff to make sure. we
What
have
would be
the
so
right
wrong
people.
with it? What's the legal problem?
Well, potential
ad hoc
problem is
committee.
having the engineering committee members discussing engineering scope of business outside of a noticed public meeting. So there's a potential Brown Act issue there. We can figure out
With
ways
only
to
two.
address
With
that.
only two.
The ad hoc committee doesn't have to be noticed, and if all they're tasked with is to come up with a tentative solution, because they can't make any decisions, and then it comes to the engineering committee for the final
But the thing is,
development.
it's a standing committee.
Right.
And if this is an engineering issue, and I don't believe you can form an ad hoc committee to do a standing committee's job.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's
That
against the law.
creates
You're
an
gonna
issue.
get the exact same result.
Matt, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Darling.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So you can't, you already have the engineering committee, which is a standing committee, which has to be noticed by the Brown Act. So we cannot have them meet separately for the same
So if I
topic.
resolve that,
Mhm.
I don't have the two committee members, that the engineering committee members do it. If I did Russ and Bertha, can I do it?
If you
Unless
created,
Scott, you're on the. I just don't feel that the public is going to get the voice heard if it's in the engineering committee. I just, this has been going on for Michelle for 2 years. How come, has the engineering committee talked about it and made any solutions?
Hasn't come to our attention yet, but it has now.
Okay, so, well, I don't know if we've ever even appointed a public member to the committee. So let's try this. The three of you, Dean, Amanda, and Michelle, come to the next engineering committee, and this is the item of discussion, come up with a solution for a commercial,
So
Policies.
we've heard, I think, the direction the board wants to see. We can absolutely bring, I think the engineering committee is the right place for that discussion. So we'll make sure that that is addressed at the engineering committee and that it's incorporated into, if it's something that has to be addressed in the cost to serve study, that it's incorporated into that. And this is absolutely the right time to have that discussion. So we're just now defining the scope of work for that consultant. So we can make sure anything that has to go through that process will get incorporated there. If there's things that we can do without having to go through that process, we can have that discussion as well. So that would all be noticed and prepared for the engineering committee. And we'll make sure that the same folks that we reached out to before this meeting have advanced notice of the agenda before it goes out for engineering committee.
And that'll give us an opportunity to find others that might want to contribute.
Exactly, yeah.
The last engineering committee meeting was on the 26th of April. When would the next meeting be? We usually go every other month.
We usually go every other month. That was an unusual one. And so I think, are we scheduled for June for engineering committee? Probably be the first Tuesday in June.
The first Tuesday, that would be the 7th.
July 5th, so.
That's too far.
It'll, okay. I mean, we're going to have to talk about a date change anyway, because July 5th, most of the folks.
So what about, do you normally meet the first Tuesday of the month? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Right.
So what about June 7th?
I mean, yeah,
Legal affairs.
Yeah, it generally alternates with legal affairs, but we can bring it sooner.
You know, we
So
have
we'll-
been
we'll
talking about
coordinate.
this for a long time, and it's time to come up with a solution of some kind.
We'll coordinate with the committee members on the next date and make sure that we reach out to the stakeholders.
Well, I'm gonna give them my card and make sure that they're happy with what's happened.
Sounds good.
Reach out to me and you, Russ.
No, they won't call me.
Hey, I tried for the ad hoc committee, so we're gonna try it this way. If that's not working, we will look at something else.
Dean, did you have your hand up again, or was that still up from last time?
I lowered it. I just thank you for your time again, and I appreciate you all being willing to take a look at this.
Very good.
So I suppose that it goes without saying that there could be no consideration of relief for these folks at this point.
No, so I think what we've evaluated that under existing policy, and there's no termination or consolidation of meters allowed under existing policy, but that's what we can work on.
Let's make sure that we have a copy of those policies so we can, because the quickest thing would be to change one of those policies.
Yes.
Even preceding the rate study, if we had to do that.
It has Prop 218 implications. Doing that could potentially
No.
dive right into those issues.
Well, I'd want to see why, because
Right.
It seemed to me consolidating the meters doesn't have anything to do with
Right.
the rate.
Right. You're just allowing him to
You can look at
consolidate.
the language within the master meter policy currently, as it currently sits to, there will be some construction plumbing associated with that,
But some of it's already done.
well, there's a concrete slab over where those meters used to be. So yeah, it will be some work that'll have to take place, but
Not
But
everybody's going
we-
to want to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's right.
And go ahead.
Question, so does the master meter mean we have to have individual meters underneath that master meter? Because then if that's the case, we don't need to need a master meter. We've got one meter that works fine. Pipe size is to collecting code from the standards. And all the work is done. They've already paid a lot of money just for that little bit of work. So we don't need any changes. So if the master meter requires multiple meters, then I say no.
Well, that's the policy. So that there are sub meters associated with the master meter. So if you would ever want to bill a tenant in the future, you would need to know what volume of water they use.
Unless they put it in the rent that
I
it's,
think-
there's no separate water bill.
Hang on here, you're misunderstanding. You're only going to be billed for the master meter, but you can read the other meters
Exactly.
to bill your clients appropriately.
Right, and I understand that part and what I'm saying. So again, we have other buildings in Tacoma County that we do the same situation. But how this is it's not billed individually. Well, it's billed individually, sorry. But there's no master meter and then going into this.
I know we're talking about creating that.
And in theory too, the guy that came out and did all your smart meters, changed them all out. He did tell me at one time there was a main meter on the road that came to this building, to the building. And then there was 4. So again, we didn't cover anything either, like you said, covered the main meters. These main meters were there. We never even touched the meters at all. And I have pictures to show that of how it was and whatever. But
I'm all about not wasting money.
right,
Like, you know, you can spend 25,000 on the study. I'm on the board. I just had a meeting yesterday. We're spending several thousand for reserve study. I get it, right? But, I mean, the way our setup is now, there's no cost, there's just mandates and policies that need to be adjusted. And there's no more wasted money to accommodate and do what's right. Because in my eyes, if I'm billing for something that's not connected,
Right.
that's fraud. It's fraudulent in my book, right? So maybe.
I can assure you, we're complying with all the state laws.
Billing someone knowing that you don't have meters connected, that's unethical. From my opinion, that's unethical. When I was at Baltimore Gas and Electric, people got overbilled for gas charges and they didn't have it connected.
I'm sorry, we have people online, so if you guys want to speak.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Rebecca.
But, so Baltimore Gas and Electric had to rebate them up to 5 years for overbilling. So doesn't this fall in the purview of overbilling? I mean, it's just something to consider because, I mean, this is a lot of money for 2 years.
We recognize that. We're trying to help you.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just
Well,
want to make it on record that, you know, hey, this is something, we don't need meters. We don't need to waste money in infrastructure changes.
You're
It's a
not
policy.
not
and a
understanding what we're trying to do. Right?
Well, it
We
sounds,
can talk more about it, but
Right, and just to clarify too, when the study that we're talking about is not specific to this. We have to do, independent of any of this, we have to do a countywide cost to serve analysis. We would just be folding some of this into that, because some of what we're talking about here, it may sound like an easy policy change, but it has implications that will have to be addressed in a cost to serve study, because it gets to how our bill structure works and how we allocate costs across all customers. Those are questions that have to go through the public process.
I get it, but what I'm referencing is Amanda was told 2 years ago when we started this, it's going to cost several $1,000s for engineering to come in and do some stuff. There's no need to do it. They already paid $2,700 for someone to spend 4 hours just to terminate a copper pipe and put couplings in and a bag of concrete.
That's the easy part. The hard
yeah.
part is the
What I'm saying is
rate
there's-
study analysis.
I'm trying to push that there's no more fees that they should have to pay for. I mean, we've been paying for 2 years for,
Right.
right?
No,
So
I
from my
understand.
book,
What-
It's just painful. I mean,
Right.
we pay more than a 5-bedroom home, right? That's why I'm like, this building, do you guys have a $198 bill for every toilet in this building? No, it's just, I'm sorry, I'm really passionate about this because it's dragged on way too long, right?
So all the work that we're doing right now, and it's a lot of work that's gone into this and a lot of work that will go into it with the engineering committee. It's not, no customer is being charged for any of that work, and it's not.
well, they're
being
charged for all of that work.
Michael, on that,
Indirectly,
Not
right?
in-
But
Michael-
it's not something we're charging fees for.
Michael,
You know, we're going to address these questions. We're going to do it openly and transparently, and we're going to go through the right process.
so Michael, she had mentioned that the engineering company had to figure out it would be X amount of money to her to determine how to remove these meters or something. So do we have what's called a cost to serve policy at how you arrive at what to charge somebody? And
We
it's-
do, but it wouldn't apply in this case because we
Correct.
don't have a policy
Okay.
that would allow for the termination of
Okay,
meters.
so with that being said, the engineer committee should also be looking at the current cost to serve policy. Does there need to be any changes on there? So we could address if there's a discontinuance. We want a discontinuance policy to look at. The using master meters policy, something that is more equitable for everybody.
So those fees are deposits also for engineering to do the work. So there's a cap on the deposit amount. And so the customer receives a reimbursement for any.
We're not there yet.
We're
We
not
gotta
there.
get some policy done and we can talk about, what it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not ready to set a number on something.
But I wanted to ask Michael a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Michael, you mentioned just a few moments ago that this might have some 218, from 218 ramifications or some consequences. I think definitely it does, because as you know, 218 is a double-edged sword. You can't charge more than it costs you, but you have to charge as much as it costs you. So if we find out that we can legitimately lower somebody's monthly bill, we have an obligation to do that.
Right. The question would be, are we shifting a cost? Right. And so if the current rate study was based on the number of customers and that each one would pay a minimum amount, regardless of water consumption, regardless of whether they're flushing toilets or not, that each customer would pay a minimum amount. That's kind of a foundational piece of the current rate structure that we have. If we start to change that, it potentially, and I'm not saying it does or it will, but we just have to be very cautious about making changes to that to make sure we're not shifting costs.
The suspension of service thing probably is more related to the vacation rental water meters. And if we were to stop that practice, it would raise everybody's water rate in the county.
Right.
Monthly water rate.
And that's a
gonna
shifting
be
of
the
cost.
same scenario here. If we allow people to disconnect, and I'm not saying I support the complete disconnection. I want a consolidation. If they're occupying the building at a different level, and if they've got too many meters, something like that, I think we can make that adjustment. The suspension of service, just to go away for 6 months, I don't know that's going to be as easy a thing to crack as reviewing these commercial meters and seeing if we can reduce the number of meters that are connected.
I agree with that.
That's going to be challenging.
On our current termination of service on the vacant destroyed facilities, did you say that does not apply to commercial? So if there's a destroyed, it does. Okay.
So we did, specifically, we allowed that because of the burned down motel.
Oh, motel one, okay.
Remember,
So
so
if-
we allowed the termination of service in that case because the building,
Okay.
the property had been vacant for a long time. They had no intention of reconnecting or using anything, so they disconnected water and sewer under the terms of the termination of service policy, different than what we're talking about here. But it can apply to commercial or residential,
So
but it has to meet those criteria that are.
on the building that they're talking about, they have the 3 additional meters. In the one building, one wall thing, is there different units in there? Okay, so if they were to take out all the walls and it's one big building, could those meters be removed then? Because there's no wall separating a separate unit.
Right, so not under the current policy, but I think that's the key issue that Director Davidson is focusing in on, is how can we allow that? Because this is the same,
Yeah.
We've had this conversation in the context of the Meadowmont Shopping Center, right? If 3 of those suites right now were to consolidate into one business and they rip down those walls, do we still
Well,
need
you
to have
don't need
3
to rip
individual
down any
meters?
walls to make this happen. They can be independent businesses. As long as the 5/8 water meter will satisfy their water needs, I mean, we can make that adjustment. It doesn't have to.
So, right, but that's changing the billing structure. So that's where it gets very challenging. And we're not, to be clear, we don't charge consumption. If a customer is not using water, just like East Bay Mud, we do not charge for consumption. Our base rate is only that, it is just the cost to serve, or, the cost of making the service available. It doesn't include a drop of water.
But in many cases, it's a multiple of an ESFU. A
Yeah.
restaurant could be paying 7 ESFUs per month.
Yes, yeah, it depends on the use. That's right.
All right,
I think
we are good enough.
let this die.
Oh, Scott, do you have any comments?
No, I'm just listening intently. Good conversation.
Very good. All right, so I think we know where we're going. You're going to attend an engineering meeting, and if that doesn't, you don't feel like your voice is being made part of a solution, get back to me. See what we can do.
Everyone's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you guys. The input, I know it's frustrating, but we really need the input from
Yes, we
customers, and
do.
we really value that. So really appreciate you all taking the time to provide that input on multiple occasions. It helps inform what we do here. So thank you guys.
Thank you. All right, no further comments online, it looks like.
You want to take a short break, please?
Sure, let's take a 5 minutes, good?
Yeah.
5-minute recess. Okay, we're back from recess. And we're going to adjust the schedule just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and move to new business 4D and then 4E, and then we're going to come back to B and C. So 4D, is that Charles? Charles and Damon. Hello again.
Hello again. So April 20th of this year, CCWD received 2 bids to construct and install a second filter at the West Point Water Treatment Plant. One of the bids was from KW Emerson for $1.85 million, and the other bid was from Sierra Mountain Construction for $1.997. The engineer's estimate was $1.639. KW Emerson's bid was found to be responsive and responsible at $1.852, which is $213,000 higher than the engineer's estimate. So all in all, fairly close. This is, if you recall, there was a portion of funds, $540,000 from the MAC IRWM was received in grant, 100% grant for this project. The design, which was completed by PBI, the cost there was $472, which included SCADA. The filter cost itself was just under $400,000. Total project cost is right at $2.9 million. So if you subtract the $550,000 in grant funds from the overall project cost, it's at $2.37 million. To date, CCWD spent $536,000 on the project. So staff will budget for the difference in that cost, overall project cost in the next fiscal year for the completion of this project. And the recommendation is to award the installation of the filter and the construction of the appurtenances to KW Emerson.
I have a question on when it went out to, or prior to going out to bid with the engineer's estimate, was that estimate done just prior to going to bid?
It was
So it's
adjusted.
not like it was sitting on the shelf or anything like that?
No, it was, yeah, it was adjusted actually multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm, we
Yep.
need to see that, not just come off a shelf and have it not looked at. Great.
Absolutely.
Any questions, comments? None? Scott, you have any comments?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right.
Acceptance.
Second.
All right, any public comment? Any public comment here? Seeing none? Roll call vote.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Damon. Moving on to 4E, discussion action regarding award of a design services contract for Copper Cove Water Systems Improvement. John. Hi, John.
Yes. Good afternoon, President. President Cicada, Vice President Ratterman, Directors. I'm here to give a verbal update on the Copper Cove Water System Project Consultant Contract Award. Back in 2018, we completed a master plan, and that master plan identified a number of high priority improvements and specifically identified 4 improvements that are identified in the staff report. Those are 4 of our high priority projects for the next 5 years. Those 4 projects, the total cost for those total is estimated at about $20.6 million. So the approach we took we issued an RFP to hire a design consultant for this work. So the approach that we took, instead of issuing an RFP for each project individually, because these are separate, but they're interrelated because they all apply to the Copper Cove water system, we issued one comprehensive RFP asking consultants to propose on all four, talk about phasing, and help us to come up with a comprehensive plan. So that RFP was issued on February 18th. We received a total of 7 proposals. Review committee of the operations and engineering staff reviewed the 7 proposals, and PBI was one of our top ranked firms. So in accordance with the RFP, PBI proposed to complete the following tasks. They will update our hydraulic model master plan. They'll prepare a preliminary design report and design documents for the new clear well and replacement of our B zone redwood tank. They will conduct an assessment of our existing infrastructure and also prepare a preliminary design report based on their findings. Also, we'll prepare a preliminary design report and design documents for our B zone booster pump station and for 20-inch water main from the water plant to the C zone tanks. Also do some environmental work associated with those projects for compliance with CCWD. So it's a pretty comprehensive list of work, very comprehensive list of projects. And having said that too, our highest priority is the nuclear well and the new redwood tank. And so that they propose that as the first item of work. The 7 proposals we received were all over $1 million in price. So again, it goes back to the engineering firms understood this was a very large project, very comprehensive, and it had a number of facets. So going back to our analysis again, PBI was ranked as identified as one of the highest ranked firms, and we felt they had the most competitive price. So final discussion, final agreement, or final resolution from the review team was to recommend award to Peterson Brewstead. And we're going to recommend award for their full contract amount, which is $1,042,659. And again, that will capture all the base tasks that were identified in this request for proposals. So again, that's why our recommendation is let's move forward with their entire scope of work. So with that, that's a quick summary of the staff report, and here to answer any questions.
Like the quick summary. Questions?
Yeah. I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution. The number is what? Well, after this, 46, okay, 0224-46, awarding a contract for engineering services to PBI.
I'll second that.
All right. Scott, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, any public comment online?
Ralph.
Okay, Ralph.
Hello again.
Hello.
Ralph Copeland, Copperopolis. First, I appreciate PBI's low bid. I hope the long-term relationship between CCWD and PBI was worth the $300,000 to $500,000 they left on the table. Regarding the Copper Cove Zone BC transmission line that now is a priority, reconfiguring and resizing this pipeline is extremely important, especially in this inflationary bid environment. Meeting current demand should have priority rather than sizing a pipeline for future developments which will or will not be built. As Director Thomas knows, development in Copperopolis has been done in a slow, uneven, and piecemeal manner. PBI also included one meeting with CV Development regarding their new pump station. CCWD should investigate mitigation from CV Development, Tuscany Hills, and the Bruckner lands for the transmission main if CCWD insists sizing the pipeline for future development. Installing an oversized main, which will never reach its capacity, is a waste of money. The Copper Cove community also needs to meet with the transmission main design team and CCWD, and this should also be included in their bid package. Thank you very much. And again, I appreciate that very aggressive bid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All All right, no public comment online? All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Davidson,
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Yes.
President Cicada.
Yes.
And just want to acknowledge Carl and appreciate you being here today. And I don't know if the board, make sure the board was aware that the engineer was in the room. But yeah, this is a complex RFP. There's a lot to it. There's different phases of it and based on priority. And we appreciate the flexibility in working with us on prioritizing those items and knocking it out. So, thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Look forward to working with you. All right, so we're going to go back to item 4B, discussion presentation of AMI water meter videos. Jessica.
Hello.
Hello.
So the past couple of meetings, I've talked to you guys about our AMI meters. We went outside and used the meter contraption. And last meeting, we talked about how I was putting together some videos for our customers to use. So we have 3 different types of meters. And so I put together 3 different videos. They are on our website and customer service staff is currently utilizing them. So I'm going to show you one of them because they're pretty much identical except for exactly how they read, but you'll get a good idea of what they're like.
Okay.
So just to remind you, so customers, if they don't know what kind of meter they have, our customer service staff can look up their account, find out what meter, and they can actually send them directly to either our website or just send the video straight to them so they can see it. So here we go.
Thank you.
Yours runs fast.
No. Hello. How many times that little one go around this going real fast for one kid? Very nice.
So yeah, so that's one example. And so one little rotation is actually 1/100th of a cubic
Got
foot.
it.
So it's
Got
kind
it
of,
down.
so it can just shows how precise
Awesome.
our meters are. So the other video I made, we talked last board meeting about testing your meter. So we put together a 5-gallon bucket video. You can Google these, they're on YouTube, but we made our own. I also shared these videos with Mueller. We were at Aqua and we saw them and they love the videos. They actually want us to share the videos to them. So here's the 5-gallon bucket test.
All right. Very good. Okay, then. Aw, very good. Good job. Yeah, that's nice.
Jessica, on that one little dial that does the 1/100th of a cubic foot, is there an example of the volume of 1/100th of a cubic foot?
Couldn't get it, I don't think.
Good
Well, the
question.
reason I bring that up is because, I had that one client that was convinced that they had a leak. And it was hard for them to visualize what that was. because that was the only thing that was moving, and I just wonder if we can, I've
So
always
that's
actually wanted to
actually
see
a
that,
really good point.
even, I'd like to have us show what, 100 cubic feet volume is, because a lot of times people just don't understand the price of water, and if we can show them a big poly tank that's 100 cubic feet, because that's 750 gallons, right? It gives them an idea, and then the charge for 100 cubic feet.
Oh, that sounds nice.
I think it makes them really understand what
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's a
what
good
the-
idea.
What the
Yeah.
actual water costs.
I think it's a good point, and I've heard of different people using different illustrative examples for a cubic foot. One is like slightly larger than a basketball, or slightly smaller than the water tank, the water cooler, jug that you get. But yeah, we could come up with some sort of analogy, or even show what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Yep.
Right, because people don't think in terms of cubic feet.
Yeah, especially with that customer you're referring to, and it's all of our meters now can report down to 1/100th of a cubic foot. Our old ones, they did, but they really didn't. So they're really seeing the tiniest amounts of leaks.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
good.
great.
Which
That's a
is
good
one
point.
of the great things about this project, right? A customer who otherwise would have had, probably had no idea that there was a leak on the property can now see that and go, wow, there's, we could potentially tighten this up somewhere.
Cool. Thank you. That was
Yeah,
really
those are
nice.
not easy to produce, so thank you,
Yeah,
Jessica.
great
That's
job.
really, really good videos,
Very good.
which is a good segue into the next item.
All right, next item.
Jessica, there's 3 meters down in Copperopolis that all read 0, so you can go pick them up.
All right, moving on. Well, any public comment? Seeing none? Thank you, Jessica. And now we're moving on to 4C, discussion presentation of the district accomplishments. Jessica again, and Dave, and everybody.
So the three of us just want to take some time to celebrate everything that we've done over the past couple of years. Specifically with COVID, I don't think that there's been a time for us to just regroup and reflect on everything that we've done. We all get sucked into our daily lives, but when you take a big step back, you can really see how much we're doing. So I just first want to say thank you to all of the staff. Everyone's working so hard every day to serve our community. And also when making this video, it was a huge team effort to get all of the information together, all of the numbers. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped me with this.
Very good.
Hello
Hey,
again.
hey.
So from the ops perspective, I think Director Davidson will be happy to know that I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for the ops report.
Oh, this is it.
This is it. And,
I like
and
it.
it's just to acknowledge all the good work everybody does out in the field, and the engineering staff and the collaboration that happens between operations and engineering. It's tangible in the video, and it's really impressive, and it's continual. It doesn't happen, or it doesn't stop when everyone leaves and goes home for the day. It continues. And, as you all know, water and sewer flow at all hours, and our staff are working at all hours. So it's a testament to them and a recognition, which is great.
Very good. Well, hello, Stacy.
Hello.
Haven't seen you all day.
To just kind of wrap up what both Jessica and Damon have said is today we're celebrating all the accomplishments over the past 2 years. We've endured many challenges, as everybody is well aware of in this room. Many of those challenges have stretched employees' minds and our muscles in some sense. And the district could not have succeeded during this time without our employees. Having hardworking and devoted staff is the main foundation for the district as well as other companies, but we are fortunate to have employees here who have unique skills, knowledge, and is able to apply them on a daily basis. So with that, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of all of management to thank everyone for all the employees, that is, for their patience, their insight, and willingness to work through these challenges these last couple of years. And we look forward to more challenges, hopefully not as many.
Thank you, and I agree with everything. Very good. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Okay, video.
Who's flying the drone?
That was awesome. Good job. Are we gonna play that at the town hall meeting next week? I think we should.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
Good job.
That's excellent. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
No, we don't have to
There's
say anything.
a ton of, a ton
Yeah.
of work that went into that. But
I
really
imagine.
hoping that the focus, and we invited union leadership. I'm happy to see some staff here. Hopefully everybody online was able to see it too, because the goal here, the board's been asking for some report outs on district accomplishments over time, but the objective here is to shine a spotlight on staff and the hard work that goes into all of those things. So as Jessica and Stacy and Damon mentioned, just can't say enough about how dedicated and highly skilled and just resilient our staff are to sorry to use a buzzword of the century now. But just how resilient our staff are and the work that's gotten done over the last couple of years is really remarkable. So
Good job,
thank you
everybody.
to staff for all of those accomplishments and to the board for the support and there were some board accomplishments on there too.
Yeah, thank you.
That
great.
was awesome. That was a lot of work was put into that. Very, very thoughtful. Very awesome. That's going to go along.
Without some. Go ahead, Scott, sorry.
No, I just was saying that I think that will go a long way. That could be added to, I'm sure, but that does show a lot about the district. Very good job.
Yeah. It's nice to see all that because you kind of forget, oh, that's right, the Reach One. Remember that was a problem, way back, and it's nice to see it all. So awesome. And we're still going to work on some kind of a employee company get together gathering because of the workman's comp refund and whatnot, right? I look forward to that too.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how that came together, the production team and
Yeah, so obviously produced by a large studio in Hollywood, as you can tell by the quality of it.
It's pretty damn good to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks like it. It started out it was going to be a PowerPoint presentation. This is what we're used to delivering, right? And Jessica really deserves the credit because she took it from there. And so I don't know if you want to talk about the production process and
Also, who's going to get to see that? I mean, are we going to shoot that on social media and such?
Yeah, my hope, I wanted to see what you all thought, but I really think
Perfect.
that it's something we can celebrate and we can send and push out to our customers. Definitely, I would like to send it out to all of our staff to watch. But I do think it would be great to push out to the community.
Well, make sure that it's, when you do, that it is shareable. And just, if every
Absolutely.
staff member and every board member shares it on social media,
Right. Yes.
that'll hit more people than anybody.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, but there's still, so from the board or from staff, if anybody sees, we'll make sure, I think hopefully we captured the highlights we want to capture, but if there's anything that was missed or if anybody wants to, provide any feedback back before we send it out widely.
I'd like to see it at the town hall.
Great.
That's the first one of this year, right?
Yeah, I got a link on your website.
Yeah, that too.
but the
Yeah, good.
the editing, the nuts and bolts of how it went together.
So I used a program. I got all the footage together. Someone asked about the drone footage that was taken by Kelly Gerkensmeyer, one of our employees here. So I was able to take all of that video and all of the information from our staff. And like Michael said, we were planning on putting together a PowerPoint presentation a couple months ago, and we had to pull that agenda item. So I took all of that information and more from staff and put it in there. It's a lot of hours, a lot of coffee.
Well, it turned out really, really nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's nicer to watch that than a PowerPoint. With people talking and reading what they wrote, that says it all. It's great. I like the one where it said, what was it? Well, number 8 popped on. I forget. It's like serving all of a sudden.
8 SCADA systems, I think.
Yeah, that's SCADA. Yeah, I thought, I was trying, serving SCADA systems. Oh, 8.
The number of
I thought that was
the number of new employees jumps out at me. Just it's kind of mind boggling. I know everybody's.
That is
noticed
pretty wild, actually.
It's unbelievable. That's like a third or more.
Are those like new to CCWD or promoted within or,
No, that's new employees.
wow, the 36 or the 23?
I think 23, right? Yeah.
Nice.
One thing I forgot to say, so actually the inspiration for this was Michael probably 4, 5, 6 months ago, beginning of the year, end of 2021, he came to my office and he shared a video from June Lopez from her water district. And he said, look at this video. It's great. I know we can never do anything like this because, it's expensive to hire someone to do that.
That's right.
And so that just stayed in the back of my mind and I just thought, you know what, we can.
Well, you did
Yeah.
great.
So we did it, right?
Yeah, good job. All right, is the meeting over then? That was really nice. Good place to stop. All right, so moving on to reports. Report on the April 22 operations. You're saying that you're not having one of those because we watched it?
Yeah, exactly. The only thing I think that I think it's important to highlight is that the underground crew did replace 30 service laterals last month. So we're on track with service lateral a day, which is a great accomplishment. So they are moving at a rapid pace.
Nice.
We're highlighting. That was all on Dunn Road in Rancho. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
People that were beating the drum loudest on that was over in
Poker Flat. Yeah, and they're going to be moving to Poker Flat soon. And there's a lot of conversation with PG&E about underground utilities in Poker Flat. So we needed to get the conversation going with PG&E before we, for lack of a better term, cut them loose on Poker Flat.
We have about another 20 we're going to do down on Dunn and then probably with a sharp and over and Poker Flat.
It takes a day to do one service lateral. Is that?
No, so Pat, I don't know if you want to talk, but basically they open, say 10 or 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then cut them all over at the same time. So all the underground work, everything happens for say 10 or 12 or, 15, depending on where they're at on the street.
And you're using the new VetCon for that.
No, that excavator over there, that's.
Yeah, we're using the older back truck to do some potholing, but they're doing all excavator work and stuff like that. Poker Flat will be a lot of back truck work.
Yeah, and, there's going to be a lot of power outages in Poker Flat when the work happens because we just need to ensure the safety of everybody when we're doing the service levels.
The excavator that you're talking about, is that CCWD asset?
Yes.
Which one are they using?
The newer cat, the mini excavator.
Yeah, Mini X.
It's not really all, it's pretty good size.
It's a decent size, yeah.
There was a line item of.
That was an excavator rental.
That claims summary about $3,500 or something for.
Yeah, it was for a rental for an excavator on that.
That was for the mudslide on a cross-country sewer line to clear like 8 feet of dirt off of a manhole. That was,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal. They're making it through that many. It's a change in so many ways to get away from just chasing leaks to getting through those service lines incrementally. It's really going to pay off over time.
Yeah, great crew.
Great employees.
It might be worthwhile for you to, at some point, to consolidate your man hours and just show the board the comparison. We made the decision to do this underground crew, but how did that compare to the $400,000 that we spent in Rancho last year?
Yeah, got it. Okay.
I think it'll really make us all feel pretty proud that
Right.
we made
Save
that
some money.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Right.
Thank you.
Nice report. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, General Manager's report.
I really want to keep everything on a high note.
All right,
So,
save it for next meeting.
However, I have to skip half of my report. I will try to highlight a few good things. And one is just the Aqua Conference last week. 4 staff members were there, a couple board members, really good interaction with other agencies, panel presentations. We attended stuff on rate setting, which was timely, the voluntary agreements, groundwater sustainability, wildfire, really good panel on wildfire discussions with EID and South Tahoe and learning from what they went through last year with the Caldor fire. And it's just a matter of time before we're in those crosshairs again. So really, really good, valuable interactions there. Just all around, I thought it was a really, really good conference. The sad news to report is Bob McGinnis passed away. He's the you guys probably remember him, longtime board president at Blue Lake Springs Mutual Water Company, and retired police chief from San Leandro. They just named the new police station after him in San Leandro, and he had a heart attack and passed away recently. So really, really great guy. Somebody I worked really closely with. So loss for the community for sure. The staff is really deep into budget preparation, and the board will start to see the fruits of that labor over the next couple of months, and at the same time finalizing, moving forward with the infrastructure financing and the bond issuance. All of that's on track, and in Julio's words, we're looking pretty smart for locking the rate in when we did, because just since that time, a couple months ago, the rates have just gone through the roof. So that was a good decision by the board, and we're going to close that deal probably at the next board meeting or early June.
We'll start with the paperwork, and the loans will close by sometime in June.
Yeah. And then Sheep Ranch ribbon cutting ceremony for the fire suppression tank on Friday, and then next week the West Point Town Hall. Is that next week or the week after?
The 17th, right?
17th, yeah.
Tuesday.
So more to come on the public outreach front. I think as far as our town hall rotation goes, we'll go back to Valley Springs next after West Point, and then back over to Copper. So we'll keep doing the rotation. That's all I have.
Awesome. Short and sweet. Good. Directors, board reports, future agenda items. Jeff, how about you?
I just want to comment on the Aqua convention. It was nice to get back and see some faces that we haven't seen in a long time, get to talk to people. Hopefully we're going to follow up with that Stockton East discussion. But it's also great to see all of our staff members who are sitting on committees and contributing. I was at the Region 3 meeting, and literally everybody, Damon, Jessica, Michael, everybody had a role in that. I think it was, they're very, very well thought of. Even Dave Egerton made a mention of the fact that how much he appreciates all of our staff's efforts with their efforts. So anyway, I just want to thank you all for that work. And it was just nice to get back and see some people and hear all the bad news together. But
yeah, and Brad reported out at that meeting too, but
yeah,
you're right.
Brad
Yeah,
was
staff,
there.
it was great to see.
Terrific.
Nice. Russ?
I don't have anything to report about past activities, but it strikes me, I was looking at my calendar here, and we've got frog jump coming up. It'd be a little not prepared to do any CCWD presentation at frog jump, but maybe for next year, that's a video like that, a little booth for CCWD would reach a lot of people in the county. So.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I know Jessica just staffed a booth at the high school recently, right? And hopefully there'll be more of those things coming back around now. Yeah, maybe we should look at, even if it's just running on a tablet or something like that. At the
just loop it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
That's it. Scott, do you have anything to report?
I have nothing to report today.
All right, thank you. I just have to report that the T-Stand IRWM is going to be meeting in person next week for the first time. So we're going to see how that goes. Looking forward to seeing all the faces. And that's really it. All right, so the next board meetings, Wednesday, May 25th and Wednesday, June 8th. So with that being said, we're going to go into closed session. We have 3 items. That's all I have to say, right? Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Any
Good
public
job,
comment?
everyone.
Any public comment on?
Amanda. Oh, any public comment before you go?
Thank you.
All right. Well, we like that one. Thank you. I was wondering where. Whereabouts though?